Hello, hello, hello. It is Fun Day Monday. It is, what is it, July 31st, 2023. Can you believe July is over and August is like right now? Goodness. Um, so anyway, it's been it's been some weather out here. It's hot and then it starts to rain and then the rain messes with the internet and then, well, you get it. Crap happens, right? So we just want to make give people enough time to get in. I don't have control over the internet, so y'all gotta overlook the if it starts to stick and if it starts to have problems, or if you can't see or hear at the moment, because the weather we are having, it is so crazy. It's like um unpredictable at the same time of it being like, oh wow, we need the break, we need the rain, but it's like triple degree heat hot type out here, and then it feels even hotter than over 100 degrees. So make sure you stay nice and cool out here. And when they say stay indoors, because I did not know, and I was out there and I got sunburned like crazy, and I'm still trying to recover. But y'all stay safe out there. And now that it's been a little minute of giving everybody time to get in, hopefully you have rang that bell and you have the notification that, hey, I'm going to be on. I'm on right now, so let's get in. Okay, so this is the Adroit Living session of the Erudition Network. Here we like to volunteer this time to interact online free of charge to provide guided perspective, linking the subjective and the objective perspectives via science and faith to to aid well-rounded knowledge and positive mental health and avoid negative mental health and the dark mental spaces that people have been in. Science is the method human use to tangibly make sense of things. It's something they can feel. Give them something they can feel. And so when they walk away, they feel like they got something. And faith is the innate part in humanity that compels us all to discern, be creative, compassionate, and spontaneously behave as we do. So it's something about people that you just can't predict. It's just gonna happen. But the subjective perspective is opinion based. That's my opinion, your truth, my truth, and it has nothing to do with the objective perspective. Sometimes the objective perspective is something that's based on facts and factors of facts such as faith in God and the factual evidence thereof. For example, hey, Sean Anthony, thank you for coming. Stay tuned, stay tuned. Make sure you hit me in the comments. Okay, so um, I was just thinking about uh, some things. There's some a sister lost her husband, and um, I've been a little. I've been trying to be there for her, even though I can't be there for her physically. So I try to do things to keep myself mentally sound so that it's the grief doesn't overwhelm and the stress and the magnitude of all of these things happening um, doesn't become overwhelming. Then I'm working and I'm on my laptop working, and then what happens? The computer starts to reboot all by itself. But it's not that it's by itself. It was told to do so, and I forgot. So it's like, oh man, now so there's so many things going on all at once that it's like, wow. I try to think of things to keep myself in a positive mental state. And there was this thought that came to mind as we are encountering all this hot weather. I think about all the people who are outside, and that's their method of making them, living for themselves and their family. And they say, well, stay indoors. Well, those people don't have a chance to stay indoors. Like people like those who are cleaning the sewage waters, those jobs, cleaning sewage waters, are not highly sought after jobs, but those essential workers have high paying jobs because nobody wants those jobs. How many times have went, come out of the bathroom screaming, I don't even know what I ate. What that could have made me do something like that? that could come out like that. Now, there's a lot of females who go on first dates and the guy wants to impress her and he takes her to these expensive restaurants where they eat these mystery meals in a mystery way with mystery ingredients, and then her stomach by the end of the date is all messed up and she ready to say goodnight because she got to go to the bathroom. She was real nice during the whole date, but she rushing to get home because it's something she got to do. And somebody out there, is their job that they went and cleaned all of that up and turned it into clean, purified drinking water. Now, those people need a tip. They need a bonus, especially around, you know, Christmas and holidays, other holidays where people eating and they don't know they limit, so they go in there and they mess their system up and go in the bathroom and let it out. Those people need a huge bonus. So I just think of stuff like that, and it just kind of makes me feel a little bit better just to mentally tell these jokes and have this mental state of mind where I'm always telling some sort of joke, in my head so that it doesn't hurt inside. Because yeah, you'll be like, man, this is depressing. There's so many people. Every time you turn around, somebody younger than you dying. It's hard. But I know, right, Dusty? People be blowing it up, and it's like nobody wants to pay those essential workers, though. But somebody needs to pay them sewage workers, okay? Because, yeah, what you say, Taco Tuesday? I don't know what they put in that sauce. I don't know what they put in that sauce, but it's something going on. And then they say, some people say they can't eat red sauce, but you see them eating red sauce because they eating pizza, they eating tacos and putting red sauce on it. They eating spaghetti, they eating some stuff, and it may not be the color red that's the problem. It's something else that's in there, and it's like, man, you got to think of something positive, something that's going to make you laugh. It's not like a positive thing if you think about it, especially if that's your job. But it's like you got to think of something positive, something to keep you up. Because when somebody, calls you and tells you, something happened that's really bad, they're calling you because they know you're gonna be there for them, even if you can't financially or physically be there for them. You're gonna be there for them, and that's what they're calling you for, to be there for them. So this is how I do it. This is how I stay positive. This is how I keep from going under. And that's what I'm taking you to. You have to put yourself in a position that, even when those things around you are going wrong and going bad and hard to go through, you'll get through it. So just, keep a positive mentality even through your storm so you can live through it. You got to live through it to get through to the positive side of things. So even though things are going bad all around you, the weather is all messed up, people dropping dead from the weather, and it's like, oh, I never would have even thought, what the heck? It just a moment ago, you everything was fine, and for whatever reason, you gone. Then you had the pandemic, and everybody thought the pandemic was over, so everybody stopped wearing masks. I still wear my mask outdoors, and if I'm around people, I still wear my mask. People are dropping dead from the pandemic. People are dropping dead from all kinds of things, and it's like it's always a shock. I don't care how accustomed you are to it; it's always a shock. And some people make it look easy. Some people tell me, you make it look easy. You have no idea the amount of prayer and the jokes that I'm telling in my head, and the amount of prayer that I'm praying, and something's just keeping me lifted. Because yeah, it's always something that's like, man, it's so depressing. Man, it's so hard to get through these things. What are we gonna do? It's like you get something and you don't understand what to do with that, and it's like something about praying makes you innately, turn things around, and it inspires you and it makes you creative in order to do some things with somebody else on the outside looking at you like, man, you made it look easy. Meanwhile, you were struggling your way through. You didn't know how you was going to get through, and you surprised you even made it through. And, I posted on Facebook the other day because I just so happened, I was watching, I had YouTube playing on the background while I was working, trying to hurry up and meet a deadline. And I was under the gun because I received the information at the ninth hour, like literally had 24 hours to get this, to meet the deadline, probably less than 24 hours. But anyway, so I threw YouTube on in the background, get that background noise going so I can stay focused and stay driven. And then a video from Bishop T.D. Jakes came on, and it grasped my attention because I'm like, what did he say? What is he doing? And then he said something about how the children of Israel were traveling through their great exodus, moving away from the Pharaoh, and they were in the desert, and God would rain manna from heaven, and everybody would just, take the manna, eat the manna, and you couldn't hold the manna because that was forbidden and it would rot. So you couldn't hold the manna, so you had to eat it when it came during the time of your meal. So I guess 3 times a day it would rain manna, and you eat it and then let it go. But all that time that is raining manna, is raining manna. It's like you never thought to cook it. I mean, you traveling through. I get it, but we often traveling. There's often nomads, and they're traveling, and they have porta potties. They have porta showers, and you got portable utensils to build a fire, dismantle the fire, and put the fire up again. You got pans and pots, so you can cook stuff in. You got your animals. You got some chickens, and they got eggs. So why don't you just make some stuff with that little manna real quick, and then eat it instead of just making it plain and dull. And Bishop Jakes was like, man, all my life I thought all it was bread, but I didn't know I had to cook. Yeah, and it's like a lot of times, people take what's there, and they try to covet what somebody else did, but they didn't even know what to do with it. And they're like, well, I got this from them, but yeah, I don't really know what to do with it, but this is what I saw them do with it. But they didn't have an understanding of what to do and how to advance this idea, how to advance this particular thing. And one of the aspects that I had posted on Facebook, um, was, it was hilarious, for the example that just because we're given something doesn't mean don't advance to make it greater. A lot of people stay stuck in the one thing that they were given, and they say, well, this is good enough, but you don't advance because it wasn't, you didn't have the creative skills, and it wasn't innate in you. Not everybody was given the same bread, everybody was given the same manna, but some people took what was given and they made it greater, just like the talents and that people were given. Jesus issued people talents, or God issued, I don't really remember, but the point is, people were given something, and it's a lot going on in my mind, and I'm trying to keep everything straight. I wasn't really feeling, well enough to come and do this show because I'm pressed for time, but I'm making the time to do this. But anyway, so they got the talents, and some of them did different things with the talents. Some people allowed fear to hold them back. Some people said, look, I'm going to do the best I can, and the best I can means I got to put it out there and invest it and do some things and try to make things happen. And that is what we are all given. We're given this baseline of skills that's unique to our individuality, our individual person. And we go out here and we do what we do with it. For example, as an industrial organizational psychologist, that's me. As an industrial organizational psychologist, I see a problem. And it's the same problem that everybody else. The difference is there's me that's not in other industrial organizational psychologists, or in other ODs, or other organizational directors, or whatever, the other counselors, other psychologists, whatever. It's something different and unique about it, that they can advance this thing beyond what everybody else has, that same baseline. But it's something uniquely different about your character that puts a unique twist on it. And now it sets a precedent it sets a stage, it sets the standard for what's getting ready to be mocked or mimicked and imitated, and now you're going to be put to the test so that we can um, develop the same idea with the intent to get the same results. You don't get the same results, and you don't necessarily have the same thing that someone else has. You have something unique to you, and you have to put your unique character to it. Now, some people may say, I'm not unique. I look just like this character in my family. I look just like this person, my ancestor. I act like this ancestor and that ancestor. But you don't. It doesn't matter what it looked like, because, like I said, it's the same manna, but it's given to different people, and those different people have unique perspectives, unique talents, unique skills, individual thought, and they're going to do something different with that same thing than somebody else who had the same thing. There was a show I did, and I spoke about how it's impossible. And I didn't really understand why people are going around, believing that somebody's going to replace you, because this is one thing that I love about psychology. We're always trying to do scientific experiments to try to discover this and map this and figure this out and figure that out. It's like a big puzzle. And if you like puzzles and riddles and things like that and mysteries and sci-fi, you're going to love this, because psychology is all of those things. And it's like you're trying to, figure everything out. And you cannot figure everything out. You cannot be replaced, because there's some part of your creator in you, and there's some parts of your ancestors in you, and there's some parts of your stubborn pig-headedness in you that's going to only make it so that you do X number of things and you make X number of decisions, where somebody else will take it far left or whatever. But you steady the course because you stay focused, whereas everyone else, they get distracted somewhere along the way, and they lose that ability to advance the thing that everybody started with, the baseline that everyone started with. And it's not to say that they can at some point get back on board and have the motivation to be creative and innovative. It's just a matter of the fact that sometimes things happen, crap happens. The person may have not had the time to come online and say, hey, mental health is physical wealth. Let me show you how. Hey, the human brain is so awesome. I tried to emulate that in the computer, and now these computers are more advanced, and now we're going to call it artificial intelligence, because that's just about, we can never, as scientists, we're still trying to map the human brain. And there's so many things that's going on with the human brain. We still have not been able to successfully figure out how to keep people from being in a dark mental state, because when one door opens, another one closes, and when another door closes, another one opens, and it's like there's nothing you can do as a scientist, as a human, to actually manipulate the things that you would like to replicate. You can't do it, and that in and of itself makes it so fascinating to me, because we're always trying to do that, but sometimes it's noted that some people, it's something about that person that they take that baseline of things and curiosity, and their genuinely clean heart and open heartedness of love and kindness, and their goal to actually be helpful. And it advances beyond those people who were contriving things to just manipulate and control to better them as an individual, as opposed to better everyone as a whole, as a community, because that African saying, I am because you are. If I'm trapped, I'm trapped by myself and there's nobody that can help me. But if I'm trapped and I'm with a community of people, somebody's going to help me. Somebody's going to eventually come looking for me and say, hey, I haven't seen, where is she? And other people are going to say, at some point in time, someone's going to come and look for me, and perhaps in enough time to be helpful, or perhaps in just enough time to see me be innovative to get myself out of there by myself. And then they're going to say, man, if we ever should be trapped alone, I want to do exactly what you did. So it's not to say that you can't get out of the things that are difficult, and it's not to say that because you got out of the things that were difficult that it was easy, because it's not easy. Everything easy when it's already been figured out and now you have the answer. Now all you have to do is implement exactly those steps. But a lot of times you cannot implement exactly those steps and get the same results. For example, I was watching a couple of people on YouTube talk about their aquariums and how they were able to get the aquarium so crystal clear. Then I talked to common people who say, well, they tried the aquarium and they couldn't do it. It was too much work. And even when they put all the work in it, they still didn't have crystal clear water, even though they paid a whole bunch of money with all the chemicals, expenses going up and all of the things. And they throwing money at the problem and they just could not get the same results that these people on YouTube are saying they were able to accomplish. So I saw the young man. Well, he's not young, but So I saw him criticize an elder in the community. I was like, okay, you could, everybody has their opinion. I don't know if the elder of the community was offended or not, but a lot of times elders, they don't really appreciate criticism. Um, because a lot of times they are more aware than the younger people coming up behind them trying to do exactly what they did, but they doing it a different way, only to find you got to have to do it exactly the way I just said, because I've tried all that you already did, and this is how you do that. And now that that man is starting to figure out that, who criticized the elder, he's starting to figure out that once you encounter these problems, it is difficult. Wait, sorry. The weather. Sorry. So anyway, all these allergies running around. So the young man saw that, yeah, you can't get crystal clear water all the time if you have XYZ circumstances, if you're doing XYZ. And sometimes the things that you thought worked for your particular situation is not applicable in another situation, even though you're the same person, even though it seems like it'll apply to exactly this other thing, you still can't accomplish those same results because it's different. It is not the same. And if you listen to your elder, you'd probably be a lot further along, especially in having realistic expectations to what you once thought was easy, but it's not easy. It looks easy, it looks glamorous, but it is not. For example, um, you know, sometimes people say things like, oh, I don't want to go to a psychologist. And another person will say, woo, I went to a psychologist and that was so helpful. I don't have a clue what I did before I did this. So I just realized my mic is not plugged in, so I'm going to have to speak a little louder. But anyway, so they say, well, I went to the psychologist and I had a terrible experience. Another person said, I went to a psychologist. It was the best person in the world. I'm mad that they retired. A lot of people will say, I went to a church counselor and the church counselor was really awesome. Another person will say, I went to a church counselor and that church counselor took advantage. They got on the pulpit and started spreading all my business, and everybody just knew it was me because I'm the new factor in the situation, and everything they said was in alignment with exactly what I just shared with them. So it's different experiences because it's different people doing different things. Some people is not, it's not that they're bad at it. It's that they're human and their individual character is putting a spin on it that you may not like. So you have to be sure that when you are doing something, that you're putting your spin on it, that in a way that is desirable to you. Some people, they go to a psychologist and they say, "Well, I'm only going to tell XYZ. I can't tell at all because I don't want you to think I'm crazy, or I'm going to limit the information that I provide for you," which is also limiting the ability for that person to successfully tell you something that's going to be effective, or as effective as you would like for it to be. People do different things for different reasons, and that's what clouds the problem. That's what clouds the problem, so that it's like I can't really decipher what the problem is in order to work it out. I can't help you figure things out. But what makes it easy is when you have all the information that you need, even if it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then you're working through it, and you say, "Well, man, I had the same thing and I got a different result." Well, I had the same thing and I got a different result. These inconsistencies are trying to be controlled and fixed and manipulated so that you get the same results that I want you to have. And that's not the way that works. It's never worked. In all the years that I've been studying psychology and studying the human mind and behavior and studying all these other, you know, just observations, books, um, testimonials, interviewing, just seeing real life unfold before my eyes. It's just never been in alignment with anything that we can control. And that is fascinating to me because some people make it look easy when it's like, oh man, it wasn't easy. What happened was they put their unique spin on it, and their unique spin made it, convenient. Not easy, but convenient or possible to manifest the desired outcome. And that is like, wow, that's really the formula for making things look easy. You put it in a unique way, and that unique way isn't applicable to everybody in every situation. So that's how a lot of people get out of that group think mentality, and they start to escape up under the box, and they're thinking like, oh wait, the box, we noticing we're a little light, let's go and run around and find where we lost that one person that decided to do something unique, and they go run and try to catch that person, and all the while all they're really doing is exposing that there's another way, and that way may look a little easier, but now I got to figure out, how did you make it look easy? Why is it easy for you? How did you do what you did? Why is it that you're not depressed? Why is it that you're not in a dark mental state when all of this bad stuff is going on around you and everybody else is in a dark mental space? Why is it that these things that were contrived to be a dark or malicious purpose is not affecting you in this way? This is the thing. Um, Last show I talked about unprecedented times, or is the times really being unveiled? We have not predicted this outcome that we are having because there was no recorded history from the beginning of time, only through word of mouth. And word of mouth was not necessarily written down as a recording. Word of mouth transpired via person to person, from the elder to the next oldest person, or all the young people who had what they thought was the age of understanding. You don't tell a baby, an elder don't tell a baby all the things that they have been through, because the baby can't even say dada, mama yet, or eat or drink. It can't say anything. So the elder tells um, through word of mouth to someone who's capable of understanding what they're saying. And the time isn't always right for them to tell them everything. They tell them as things come up, or as things are being manifest, or problems make themselves, oh, apparent that the person needs help with it. So it's difficult when you don't have that elder perspective, where it doesn't matter what the culture of the person is, it doesn't matter what their particular faith, or none of those things matter. It's a matter of the fact that they've been seen some stuff. We didn't record because they didn't. It was other things to do. They had to build stuff. They had to farm stuff. They had things that they had to do. They didn't have time to record. Well, today it feels like 2,000 degrees outside, and the crops are surely burning long before I can get the seed into the ground. The seed is dead because it's just that hot out here. Or they say things like the rain is such a rain that is flooding everything and it's unearthing all the crops because it's such a flood. They did not have the measures of recording. So we also have to apply that same ideology to the fact that everybody did not necessarily record, um, you know, people in the masses turning from the group mindset. But we have recorded civil unrest at some point where there was civil wars, where it was a war and everybody is in the same location and they're warring against each other. That's a civil war. And when you have people in the same location warring against each other, who got time to write that? Who got time to write about any of that? And anybody that survives, they may speculate because they weren't in the middle of how it kicked off and what happened when it jumped off because they ran to tell it another day. So they don't know all the details. But we still use that same platform to say, this is the standard. This is the level of measurement. This is when that's not, when that's inconsistent to the reality, it already set the president for expectation. And when that expectation is not met and we have to start adjusting the scales, we're like, well, what do we do now? And all the time it was contrived to make things look easy. But what it really did was put people in a dark mental state because they're like, well, I don't know what's going on. If this isn't what's going on, I don't know what's going on because they set a, a false foundation of security where people feel like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen. I know this. You know nothing. And if you were conditioned to understand that you don't know anything and everything could change and it's inevitable that, change comes and you'll be all right. If that was the thought that was being pressed more than, oh, we can control this. Oh, we know what we can predict this. Oh, we can forecast this. If that was not the mentality that was being pushed more so than the mentality of, oh, okay, well, I make it look easy, but this is how I did it. I put my unique spin on what we already have. I didn't recreate the wheel. What I did was I made it look easy. I understand that something that was contrived for a malicious purpose can turn for the good of those who have a good heart, who have, the mind to pray, those who have the mind to be helpful. How do I know that? Because word of mouth from what somebody else said, and that person used to be known for, praying all the time and being really, they didn't really go to church or read their Bible, but they would pray all the time to the point where I thought they was crazy. Everybody in town used to think they was crazy. For example, there's a woman, it's a story, they put it to song, and way back in the day when cultural divide was prominent, there was a black woman and her family, and the woman was an elderly woman, and her son was driving, and it would start to rain, and then they got into an accident, and they saw along their path, they saw a house, and in the rain, they all got out of the car, all but the elderly woman, and they knocked on this white woman's door and asked, can they come in and call the doctor because the man was hurt. And the mother, she finally got out the car because everybody took so long. She going to see what's going on with her son. And they say, well, the doctor, we called the doctor, but the doctor was out on his rounds. Now, it's back in the day because the doctors don't do rounds anymore, but we might go back to that. Anyway, so the doctor was out on his rounds, so she couldn't get hold of the doctor. So the elderly woman asked the white woman, she said, look, can I go to your closet? Do you have a closet? Can you point me to your closet? The white woman didn't understand because there was a cultural divide, a cultural understanding in her culture of how to call a doctor. And there's a cultural understanding in the community that African American woman was accustomed to because there was a closer in times when there were African tribes, and the African tribes knew how to do things that did not translate over to Western culture and Western understanding. But anyway, this white woman said, well, if you want to use the phone, you could use the phone and keep trying to call the doctor. And the black woman said, I don't want to use the phone. I just need to get to your closet so I could call my doctor. So she showed her to the closet, and the woman, the elderly black woman, got in that closet and she started praying. And she started reminding God, she said, Jesus is my doctor. Jesus writes down all my prescriptions, and Jesus makes everything all right here in my room. Shortly after, the doctor comes knocking at the door, and everybody's like, oh, wow, we're so surprised that you're here. And now everything's okay, and everybody starts to, show gratitude and thanks. And the white woman is now aware of a cultural understanding of how to manipulate what is necessary in order to get the needs met. Now, a lot of people can get whatever they want out of that story, but that's a reflection of what's in them. The idea behind that story is to understand that you are not in control. And as long as you continue to believe that you are in control of something, when you go looking for them, they won't be there. And it's going to put you in a dark mental state. Whereas if you were to understand that you are not in control, and something above you is able to control and manipulate the things that you need and desire to have and how to advance and prosper, then you'll start seeing things differently, and you'll have a more positive mental state because you will understand your baseline, the baseline of the things that are in your control that you can control, and you can accept the fact that there's some things you cannot control without that idea of putting you in a dark mental space. You'll be able to understand a whole lot better that, yeah, well, while I can't control that, it's always worked out for me. Well, why I can't control this and why I can't manipulate that, and why I'm looking for help from this way, it comes from another way all the time. When I'm looking for somebody to avenge me, when I'm looking for vengeance from somebody who harmed me, when I'm looking for them to come back and hurt me because I know I hurt them. You will understand it ain't coming from where you think it's coming from. Nothing ever comes from where you think it comes from. But a lot of times it do, which makes it seem like that's something that you can control or expect, or that expectation is realistic when actually it is not. And more often than not, things happen in a positive way or even a negative way in a manner that you did not expect it to, but though you may have been hoping in some kind of way it works out, or some kind of way it gets out of this. It looks easier when you don't have that expectation, that unrealistic expectation, and you set those unrealistic expectations on yourself, which makes you feel like a failure when it does not manifest itself in the way that you thought it should, or the way that you thought it would, when you fail to advance it in the way that you thought it should, or by the perspectives it should have went this way, is according to the perspective it should have went, and it should have prospered in this way, and because of the plan that we had together it should have went, and it doesn't go that way. And these too big to fail companies are like, well, we've been big this long, we've been around for at least 2 generations, and now it's just failing. It's because you had set unrealistic expectations that did not have the sustainability and the realistic expectations set before it, but the false foundation of the security of what the expectation was. You thought, oh, well, because we were able to build this false foundation, that was going to stay. But we already know ill-gotten goods don't last. Anything that you have that's going to be a generational wealth, something that's going to be long lasting, is going to be based on a foundation that you understand you are not in control You can't manipulate what you want. You can't do what it is you want to do, but you will always have your needs met. You'll always be able to have a positive mental state. You'll always be able to accomplish the goals that you have set before you, but it was in alignment with something. It was in alignment with something that was destined for your path, your journey. And we are all in this flesh. This flesh expires. And there's a time, we don't know what that time is, and can't nobody rush it. The pandemic can't rush it. It's been some people like when the first person got COVID-19 and they survived it, everybody was looking like, well, wow, you were sure to die. How did you survive? Because everybody has, in this flesh, everybody has a number. Everybody has a set time. And it doesn't matter what happens to you in your journey, you can overcome it, because when your time is up, that's when your time is up. You could have overcome cancer. You could have overcome uh, COVID-19. You could have overcome SARS and polio and anthrax. You could have overcome all that just to die healthy, well, and happy in, just watching TV among your friends and family. And suddenly you just pass right there. No reason, no rhyme, no reason. You healthy, everything, you laughing and chilling and kicking it and relax. And you just pass away. You just fade away because there's something about this flesh, if that's what that is. Now, a lot of people didn't think, for example, if you get shot a bunch of times, even just one time, you die. But as we continue to advance, and this idea became more apparent that that's not necessarily the case, that you could manipulate it, that happens every single time. You cannot replicate it every single time, because somebody can get shot one time and die. It'll be in the same area, the same spot, and they'll die. Whereas some people can get shot a bunch of times, to including that fatal spot, and they live. Because it's something about their path, their journey, that's not the same as the other people. In science, psychology, they had this one guy who accidentally had part of his, well, maybe not accidentally, but just so happened that had half of his brain shot off. And it was like the first time that has ever happened in history that you had that situation to transpire and the person did not expire. The person did not die. And not only did that person not die, but it changed their otherwise unpleasant characteristics and personality traits and the behaviors. It changed that to something positive, something desirable, something that was more pleasant to be around. And, it's like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me everybody that died from a head wound, a gunshot, what was a shotgun to the head, didn't have to die? They could have survived, and they could have not only survived, but their personality would have been more pleasant than what it was before. You cannot replicate that same thing because you don't know what that person's path is. You don't know that person's expiration time. It's so many other factors in there that we throw out as scientists because we call that an anomaly. Well, if we were to stop throwing those anomalies out, if we were to stop throwing those outliers out, if we were to stop throwing those things out that we can't control and keep it in there, we might find something. We might find a better way to make things more palatable, more feasible to a more positive mental state, as opposed to, oh, I can't control it, so now I'm mad. Oh, I can't replicate it, so now I'm mad. Oh, I can't manipulate it, and I can't you can't do what you can't do, but you can accept the things that you cannot do and focus on the things that you can do, because it may be that you are innate to do something different, to advance things in a different way, if you were only to focus on the things that you can do and stop trying to manipulate and control things that you cannot control. For example, on one of the shows I talked about, well, sometimes I talk about it every now and again, how people contrive systems. And I hate the word systems. I hate how people do statistics, because it puts people in a dark mental state to believe false falsities that are unsustainable to a positive outcome, and is really turning people into um, you know, to be to fatal to be fatal in a way that was avoidable. You're not a failure just because you couldn't replicate these things. You're not a failure just because you couldn't control or manipulate things like what somebody may have made you. Maybe you could. You're a failure. It's not that you can't get past this. You live long enough to live through it and get past it and live beyond it, so you could realize that all that time that it was raining manna, you could have cooked. You didn't have to just eat the plain bread. All that time where you thought that you were in that box and you were only able to be in that box, all that time it was you. You were the aspect of the factor that made that box, that shaped that box. And you don't have to be in that box. You could do something different. What did you say? We learned about him recently and how his situation helped shine a light on the understanding of the brain. Yeah, and you know what? What's fascinating about that? Um, Even though it shed light on trying to help map the human brain and map the correlation, how it relates to how people behave and interact, and it shed light on spontaneous things. People also avoided the fact that it was a freaking miracle. Like, man, there's a God somewhere, and God got jokes because this man walking around with half a brain. You know, it's it's not just a conditioned perspective that's in this box, but it's a whole wide big picture that you missing out on because you focus on only the things you are contrived to focus on, only the things that you are manipulated to focus on, only the things that you are you know uh, distracted to stay in this one particular area. Whereas a lot of times, I know I use this example that Einstein. They said Einstein was too stupid to go to school, but meanwhile, if you look at it, you would see the reason why school was ever developed in the first place. You would see that it wasn't that he was too stupid. It was probably more along the lines that he would not be in the box. Even as a young person, he would not be in the box. And his inability to maintain that conditioned thinking was influencing all the other people who were being conditioned to be in that box. And they didn't want that. They didn't want him to um, shed the light on the fact that there's other options outside of A through B or A through C or however many multiple choice answers that they give you. And there's more choices than a the A through Z alphabet. Then math started to put um, letters and numbers together because numbers weren't sufficient because there's more options than all the numbers that they have to include infinity. And then they said, well, infinity and beyond. And then they started to, as they continue to have these anomalies be something that's more prominent than the time used to call for, they had to expand their horizon to include this because it got out of control and it advanced them. That unorthodoxy is something that we saw in for as far as what was recorded before the Apocrypha and before various scrolls that were on the walls of caves and things like that. We saw that being done. Before that, because it's written in the Bible where somebody was like, oh man, you're an amazing person, and somebody was amazing before you, and he said you were coming, Jesus. He said you were coming. And Jesus looked at him and said, yeah. And he started naming some of the people that came before him. And he said, and there'll be others that'll come after me. But the focus is not that. That's not the focus. The focus is the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is for all of us to focus on the Creator, who has something part of the Creator in each and every one of us that's uniquely able to contribute to what we are here and going towards in the time that we are in, and how we can advance these times in this manner if we stay outside of that box. If we stay in the box just because the box is moving and relabeling itself every time it moves, doesn't mean that we're outside the box, because now we're still being confined to our own understanding. We're still being confined to group thinking, group mentality, and that group mentality can put you in a dark mental space where it's like you don't understand. It was because you controlling you built me up. Controlling you made me feel better. Controlling you helped me to feel like, oh, I'm doing something when I'm not doing nothing but coveting, but taking the light off of where it should be to make it seem like a false foundation is actually a sound foundation. But when it crumbles and everybody's scattered, like, well, what are we going to do now? Just like the Tower of Babel, everybody was like, well, we're going to all be on one accord and we can get to heaven in a different type of way. We don't have to wait till we die. We can get there like this. We build this big old tower. And everybody was on one accord. And then something transpired where it was like, oh, y'all think y'all slick? Y'all think you in control? Let me show you who really in control. And then everybody began to babble. A lot of the people didn't have the same talk, the same language, the same way of communicating. So that term, that coined the phrase babble. They were babbling to one another, and then they had to stop that focus, that group mentality that was a false foundation and doomed to fail anyway, because once you get to a certain height, the air gonna get thin anyway. And once you reach out of space, hey, well, anyway, there's certain things about it that was like, man, that it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense, but it wasn't supposed to make sense for that purpose. It was supposed to show you that every time you get together and you try to build a false foundation of manipulation, something that's contrived to a deviant purpose, God gonna turn it for the good of them who love Him, and it's not gonna be for what you think is what it was contrived to be in the first place. It's gonna turn, and whereas you thought that money and that profit and everything that you were gaining from that particular thing, you're going to lose out because it was ill-gotten and it ain't going to last. But if you would have done the right thing, that very thing can be turned for the good of everybody, because all you have to do is stop in that waywardness and turn and say, you know what? It doesn't make sense that we're building this Tower of Babel, because it's something that's going on that we may not realize, but let's try to measure this and see how this goes. Everybody keeps thinking that, it hasn't been done before. Something hasn't been done before because it hasn't been written down so that we can read it. But look at all the things that's been written down. Look at all the things that's been written and recorded in writing. They're taking things out of it and they're rewriting it. Look at all of these history books. They're trying to rewrite these history books, and everybody's saying, well, you can't burn the history books that's got all the information, the correct information in it, the accurate information in it, because it doesn't suit your needs or it doesn't fit the era in which the times you trying to go into. You're trying to falsely create. You cannot destroy history because you destroyed a book, because word of mouth. And then there's something innate in people where they think, well, because you did that, it doesn't exist. It does exist. It happened, and you're not doing anything new. And what you're doing is you're making it so that we have to now write it down again, but it's not new. It is just a different context. It's a different construct. It's a different person in a different time, but it's the same thing. So it's not to say that, oh, I'm doing something new because I built this whole system and everybody's depending and relying upon this system. Even though it's broke, they still rely on it because they're comfortable in knowing and being able to measure how things are going to go wrong. And for example, insurance companies said, well, if you build something and you know that it's going to have errors or flaws in it, what we're going to do is we're going to have you to set aside enough money so that when this goes wrong, this is how much money actually covers the things that go wrong. So then you have these people who invest and they say, well, we're expecting X number of dollars out of it. Well, we can't give you X number of dollars, somebody will come around and say, because we have to take those expenses and turn it back over into the insurance and build up our insurance because there's a lot of things going wrong. And they say, well, okay, we will allow that. But then the situation gets so much out of control that even though you have all this insurance money to cover the times when these things go wrong, it still doesn't it doesn't work, and it because it's inconsistent. There's some inconsistencies that's innate in these things when you contrive them for the wrong purpose, and you sit there and you holding on to these false legacies as if, oh well, it's new. Oh well, it's not going to be bad. We're going to overcome those things that went wrong before. When you're not in control of it, and you have to kind of go with the flow a lot of times. And a lot of times we've seen where some people are in a position that they're like, oh man, it's a good thing that I already left because back there they're struggling, they're having problems. A lot of times it's those people who was just minding their business or minding the business that pays them, and they jetted and ducked out when they saw the BS was going wrong. They was like, I see what's coming. I'm across the street and turn in the other direction because I know that this is going to fail. And then you're looking for those same people every day, and you're calling them a rat for leaving. But you might want to look at that rat because they're leaving that situation, that scenario, that broken system for a reason. They're leaving it because they've already forecast that you're going to lose big. It's like an insider trading tip, but nobody actually said anything to you. You are watching the signs and the signals, and you're like, yep, I can see it coming. They're at the height of anything that they can prosper from. So at this point, I'm going to cash in, get out, and start something different with the knowledge of all the things that I can forecast is going wrong with what happened just then. It seems like that mindset trended to make people feel like they can control and manipulate desirable outcomes that only prosper particular individuals. And that's no longer the case because that mentality was a broken system, that same broken system that's perpetuating these dark, mental, sporadic, fatalistic problems that we're seeing globally. And it's not to say that it wasn't happening before because nobody recorded it. It's to say that now it's unveiled to the point where you cannot avoid that this is happening. You cannot avoid the fact that you are not in control of what happens and what's going to happen. But you can help advance things in a way that can make some of those problems avoidable. But some people, you can't save everybody all the time. But what you can do is realize that when the light is being shed on something, it's showing you that it's not what it is, not the method of control that you thought, it's not the method of measurement that you thought. It is not easy as you thought it was. The part that's easy was the fact that you accepted those things that you cannot change and you focused on the things that you can change, the things you can positively contribute to, the things that you can inspire, motivate, and create. But you're limited and you accept the fact that you're limited because it may be for somebody else to come along and put their spin on it, put their uniqueness to it, and build this wonderful team, like the African saying, I am because you are. Because together we can advance things in a way that we can't do individually. And a part of that advancement is your positive mental state. Because if you're in a dark mental state, you're going to produce those things that are also a dark and mental state. So, stop looking at people and looking at their hair and looking at their outfits and looking at and saying, oh, it must be easy. It must be easy. No, just focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on, the things that you can change, the things that you could possibly contribute to, and do that. And when something else gets added to you where you can advance even beyond that baseline, then do that. Stop being distracted by all this other stuff that's putting you in dark mental spaces, and live through the what looks easy to everybody on the outside looking in because you have the answer already. Stop making it seem like you can't live past it because it ain't easy. Because it wasn't easy for the person to get past it. Now, that's my time for today. Ring the bell. I'm in a state of grieving over a loss, but ring the bell, get the notification of when I come back, and remember, until then, mental health is physical wealth.